Reinforcement measures. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe requests Speaker Karu Jayasuriya to convene the Parliament to debate the bond inquiry report. More than capable. Election Commission Chairman insists that his commission and the police together can handle the local government election. Achieving targets. State primary balance reaches a surplus of over 20 billion during the first 10 months of the year.
And the surplus in the current account is also expected in 2018 for the first time since 1984.
Necessary changes. New head coach Chandik Hathurisinghe appointed to the selection committee.
Well, we're working very closely, very beautifully at the moment with Hathuru, Labby and cricket board at the moment.
Shipping catastrophe. 30 persons missing after an oil tanker collides with a cargo ship off China's east coast. Bring you news from home and across the world. This is First at 9 on other Derana 24/7. Good evening, I'm Katharina Chang. Now, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe requests Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya to convene a parliamentary debate on the final report compiled by the Commission of Inquiry on central bank bond issuances. The Premier made the request during the special convention of the United National Party held at Campbell Park in Colombo today. United National Party supporters and activists marched from several locations in Colombo to converge at the special convention worked off at Campbell Park this morning. The convention commenced with the arrival of national leader of the UMP, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. General Secretary of the UMP, Minister Kabi Hashim, presented the convening letter of the special convention. Party senior leaders, politicians as well as party leaders of the United National Front participated in the event today, along with over 8,000 local government election candidates representing the UNP.
We will never forget the sacrifices you made. All of us, including the Prime Minister, understand the pain that you are going through. It was because of your service that we were able to appoint the common candidate as the President of the country. The time to serve you is coming.
Honourable Prime Minister, I along with all the 113 candidates will make sure to win the Colombo Municipal Council with an 80% majority. I should remind all of our supporters gathered here that our UNP fortress is based on the 5 seats within the boundaries of CMC. Even during the previous local government election, UNP secured a majority of 70% in Colombo. No one can defeat the UNP in Colombo.
We wanted to establish good governance. As soon as there was talk about the controversial bond issue, I appointed the Pitipana committee and convened a parliamentary debate. We then appointed the COPE, and once they compiled the final report, I sent it to the Attorney General, advising him to propose legal action against those who are responsible. I even agreed to the President's decision to appoint a presidential commission on the matter. I myself and another 3 ministers even gave our testimonies there, something that has never happened in Sri Lanka before. We have sent their final report to the Attorney General as well. Parliamentarian Dinesh Gunawardena asked me last week whether we can convene a parliamentary debate on the matter. There is no problem. I request the Speaker to convene the Parliament on the bond issue because we have a transparent work ethic. I will specifically tell something to the joint opposition members and media who always highlight the bond report. I will make sure to advise necessary authorities on taking further action on the matter. The Commission of Inquiry is of the view that these sort of activities had happened since 2008. That means fraudulent activities have taken place between 2008 and 2015. The Commission of Inquiry even mentions that it was during that period the EPF saw most losses. 4,000 billion rupees were taken without the approval of the Monetary Board. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa has left you with a debt of 10,000 billion rupees. Why is the media scared of questioning the former president on the inquiry report by the Bond Commission or this 10,000 billion rupees?
Meanwhile, views were expressed in the political arena on the final report of the Commission of Inquiry.
Minister Rajitha Senaratne asks what the bond issue is when compared to Nama Rajapaksa's bank account in Dubai. Prove it then. All this government ever did was fraudulent activities. 3 high courts on anti-corruption will be established. We will focus on the bond issue at one court and fraudulent activities by the Rajapaksas on the other 2. And during the next 2 to 3 years, we will ensure they are imprisoned. Who appointed Arjuna Mahendran as the governor of the central bank? Why did they dissolve the government as soon as there were allegations on the bond issue? The public knows as to who attempted to protect whom. Did the bond issue come to be because of a decision by the UNP Working Committee? Or was it because of a decision by the Cabinet of Ministers? No. Every government, every place have fraudsters. Without any shame, Minister Susil Premajayantha says that politicians in other countries who are under allegations usually resign from their posts. The Petroleum Corporation was most corrupt during his tenure. Did he resign then? There is only one central bank for a country. How can politicians who follow a leader who robbed the central bank be clean? Ranil Wickremesinghe robbed in English and no one understood a word. Prime Minister will have to take the responsibility here because it was he who appointed Arjuna Mahendran as the CBSL governor. But we have doubt as to whether this file too will be hidden away just like the other ones in the Attorney General's department. I believe this is the most unbiased commission that was appointed in recent times. The Attorney General must focus on legal aspects of the issue here. If there are provisions, then action must be taken accordingly. However, if there aren't any provisions, necessary laws must be brought in through an Act of Parliament. No one would be against it considering the public view at present. Who'd be against recovering public money?
Meanwhile, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa responded to questions on allegations set against the previous government by the Commission of Inquiry.
Allegations on bond issue lies on the current government. They always talked about how corrupt my government was. So that is why I am asking to conduct an investigation so that things will be cleared. No one talks about how he is involved in fraudulent activities worth millions of rupees. The Commission of Inquiry itself said that. The President made a statement saying that he is trying to protect the Prime Minister.
Police media spokesperson SP Ruwangunasekara says 68 complaints of election law violations were received during the pre-election period. Police have arrested 38 individuals, including 8 candidates, in connection with such violations. The police media spokesperson revealed the information addressing a press briefing in Galle today.
Police stations island-wide received 68 complaints through to 6 this morning since the nominations. We have also arrested 38 suspects over complaints. Among those 38 arrested persons, there are 8 candidates. In addition to that, police also made 38 raids over violations of election law, resulting in 76 individuals being arrested on suspicion. Among those, 4 are election candidates.
Meanwhile, a meeting was held at the Galle District Secretariat to educate police officers of the southern province over the forthcoming local government election duties. Chairman of the Election Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, Inspector General of Police, Pujit Jasundara, and several others attended the meeting.
Sri Lanka Police now has the liberty to go about our work freely. The police, who maintain law and order of the country, has the responsibility of implementing election law without being partial to any party or person. The police also has to conduct duties without being troublesome to anyone. This is the police which depicts things as it is. Then you can implement the law respectfully. What are the obstacles you meet when you implement law? Firstly, politicians who are affected approach you. Then they exploit friends and relatives of yours to get to you. After that, even your own family members question you as to why you are trying to make changes and suggest things be left how they were. If you want to keep things as they were in the past, what will happen? Everyone who can afford will leave the country and others will have to suffer. Someone asked me whether we can deploy the army for election duties. I told them no, this is a civil duty and not a war. The election can still be handled by the Election Commission and the police.
In the meantime, politicians expressed various views ahead of the local government election.
Various things are said about the upcoming local government election. Some call this a referendum. You have to be mad to call this a referendum. How can this be a referendum? Some say this shows the state of the country. No, this is to elect a village representative. We urge you to elect a person who is capable of working. Will your child be able to get uniform material from the school itself without running behind vouchers? Will the fertilizer be given for 350 again? Will the port and airport be allowed to be sold? That decision will be taken on the 10th of February. That decision should also answer the question whether a constitution that divides the country would be brought in. They said 1 million jobs will be given. Either the jobs are given in dreams or written in a book. Give us a provincial council. We will build it and show you. We're seeking votes for you. Remember that we are your servants. We're not ones who choose politics to earn money. We will take the government into our own hands in 2020 for sure. Mahinda Rajapaksa didn't just boast after coming into power in 2005. He built the country's economy and defeated terrorism. He built a stable country. Didn't we have more money then than today?
Various people are seeking votes putting a flower bud forth. I don't understand how they are still seeking votes from our people without any shame. They stole by constructing roads. Had the Rajapaksa regime stayed in power for 3 more months, there wouldn't have been money to pay the salaries of state officials.
Let's now take a look at few other stories making news across Sri Lanka. The police arrested 13 individuals for possession of illegal drugs at Adams Peak today. They were caught by officials from the Police Narcotics Bureau who were stationed to inspect devotees engaged in the Sri Pada pilgrimage. They were later produced before the Hatton Magistrates Court. A lorry and a car collided head-on at Kudaoya along the Hatton-Nuvarelia road today. The police said the drivers of the vehicles speeding. The incident didn't result in injuries. A tree planting project was worked off in the vicinity of Bopatalla today. The project was worked off by officials from the South Asia Gateway Terminals Private Limited, Army, several youth organizations and the Kuruvita Pradeshya Sabha. A 20-year-old male who was on the footboard of a train travelling from Colombo to Kandy collided with the railings of the bridge known as Kalupalama and fell to his death into the Mahavali River last evening. His body was discovered along the banks this morning. Coconut retailers in Maharagama and surrounding areas as well as the Elkanda weekly market refused to sell coconuts over the weekend following the control price imposed by the government. Sellers in the area said that they are unable to sell coconuts for 75 rupees a piece as they would incur loss.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. The Ministry of Finance says the Sri Lankan economy saw a surplus of 221.9 billion rupees in the primary balance of the fiscal account during the first 10 months of 2017. In a media release, the ministry pointed out that a surplus in the primary balance was achieved for the first time in 63 years. Meanwhile, Central Bank Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, speaking at a recent event to unveil the Central Bank's roadmap for 2018, said attaining a positive primary balance is an indication of major improvement in the path to achieving stability in the system. He said a surplus in the current account is also expected during 2018.
State revenue increased 10.4% in the first 10 months of last year to 1.473 trillion rupees compared to 1.33 trillion rupees in the January to October period of year 2016. Tax revenue during the same period in 2017 increased by 14.2% to 1.47 trillion rupees. Government expenditure amounted to 2.06 trillion rupees during the January to October period of 2017, posting an increase of 9.5% over the corresponding period of 2016. The government's interest expenditure alone in this period stood at 609 billion rupees apart from domestic and foreign debt payment of 856 billion rupees. Thereby, the primary budget balance recorded a surplus of 21.9 billion rupees compared to a deficit of 37 billion in the corresponding period of 2016. Meanwhile, speaking at the recent briefing to unveil the central bank's monetary and financial sector roadmap for 2018, Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy spoke on the country's current state of the primary balance.
On the fiscal front, the government has embarked on a revenue-based fiscal consolidation path to strengthen the country's public finances. The government expects to reduce the budget deficit to 3.5% of GDP by 2020 and thereby reduce government debt to a sustainable level in the medium term. It is in the process of implementing several reforms aimed at improving government revenue collection while rationalizing government expenditures to adhere to the envisaged fiscal consolidation path over the medium term. A positive primary balance is expected in 2017 for the first time since the early 1950s, and a surplus in the current account is also expected in 2018 for the first time since 1984. These are clearly major improvements. The fiscal performance of the government has been the main source of instability in the system ever since the economy was liberalized. In 1977. This has been a major problem, and it's encouraging that these structural deficits, both in the primary account as well as in the current account, are now being turned around, and for the first time in decades, really, we are beginning to see a surplus. This is a major advance. Again, though, winning battles, but not quite the war yet. The reform agenda of the government includes improving financial viability of state-owned enterprises to mitigate the budgetary implications for the government.
China has set out goals for its economic and social development and sees recruiting experts from abroad as key to achieving that. The country is issuing long-term visas to lure highly skilled people from abroad to working in the country. According to state media, the multi-entry visas will be valid for between 5 and 10 years, and in 2016, China introduced a ranking system for expatriates aimed at identifying the skills it wanted to attract while reducing the number of lower-skilled foreigners coming into the country. When plans for the scheme were first considered, China said at least 50,000 foreigners would benefit. Technology leaders, entrepreneurs and scientists from in-demand sectors are among those eligible to apply. Visa holders will be allowed to remain in the country for up to 180 days at a time and will be eligible to bring partners and children. The chair of the UK's Treasury Select Committee has written to country's revenue and customs seeking clarification on what proposed new VAT rules will mean for companies. Legislation that plans to change how imports from EU countries will be treated after Brexit has been drafted. The customs bill will have its second reading in the House of Commons on Monday. It could force tens of thousands of firms to pay VAT upfront in cash to the UK Revenue and Customs. Under existing rules, goods imported from the EU are referred to as acquisitions for tax purposes. No VAT is paid until the products have been sold to the final customer and paid for. But unless the UK remains in the customs union, goods from the EU will have to be treated like all other imports after Brexit and will attract VAT by 15th day of the following month. "32 people are missing after an oil tank and a cargo ship collided off China's east coast last evening. A tanker carrying Iranian oil and operated by the country's top oil shipping operator was ablaze and spewing its cargo into the East China Sea today after colliding with a Chinese bulk ship. The Sanchi tanker, registered in Panama, collided with the CF Crystal some 160 nautical miles off the coast near Shanghai last evening. It was sailing from Iran to South Korea, carrying 136,000 tons of condensate and ultra-light crude. That's equivalent to just under 1 million barrels, worth around $60 million based on current global crude oil prices. South Korea has also sent a ship and helicopter to help. State media CCTV showed photos of the tanker blaze and billowing plumes of thick dark smoke. The Iranian tanker was due to arrive at Daesan in South Korea from Karg Island in Iran today. CF Crystal's 21 crew members, all Chinese nationals, have been rescued. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tiptoed today around a threatened US aid cut to Palestinians, stopping short of backing any immediate funding halt even as he called again for dismantling a UN agency created to help Palestinian refugees. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's public comments at a weekly cabinet meeting appear to reflect a desire to show support for a main ally, US President Donald Trump, as well as concern that choking off funds would deepen Palestinian hardship, particularly in the Gaza Strip, and put Israel and militants on a course for war. Yesterday, in a report denied by a State Department official, Washington had frozen $125 million in funding for the United Nations Relief and Work Agency. Meanwhile, Arab foreign ministers said yesterday that they will lead efforts for international recognition of a Palestinian state in the aftermath of the US decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. US President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital infuriated the Arab world and upset Western allies.
The meeting held in Amman between officials from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, the UAE, Jordan and the Palestinian Authority is part of a process set up by the Arab League after its emergency meeting last month. The officials also discussed a possibility of holding an emergency Arab League summit ahead of the regular session, which is set to take place at the end of March. US President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital sparked violent protests on a weekly basis along the Israel-Gaza border and in the occupied West Bank. The state of Jerusalem has been one of the biggest obstacles to a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians for generations.
Let's now take a look at some of the stories making headlines across the world.
John Young, one of only 12 people to have walked on the moon, has died at the age of 87 today. The US agency said that the former astronaut's death was due to complications following pneumonia. Young is the only astronaut who took part in the Gemini, Apollo and Space Shuttle programs. The Australian city of Sydney has experienced its hottest weather in 79 years, with temperatures hitting as high as 47.3 degrees Celsius. In Penrith, west of Sydney, residents sweltered as the town bore the brunt of the heat, while severe fire warnings were issued for the Greater Sydney area and total fire bans were put in place across the city. German Chancellor Angela Merkel launched a new round of coalition talks today in a bid to end the country's political stalemate. More than 3 months after its election, Germany is still without a new government, and the 5-day talks are seen as Merkel's last chance to form a stable coalition. Speaking at a media briefing yesterday, Nigerian Foreign Minister Geoffrey Onyeama says the country has commenced flights to evacuate thousands of its citizens from Libya. The government had 2 planes arriving in the Libyan capital. A group of 11 Saudi princes was arrested on Thursday after staging a sit-in at a palace in Riyadh. According to the kingdom's Attorney General, the princes were protesting a recent royal order that halted payments by the state to members of the royal family to cover their electricity and water utility bills. They also want compensation for the 2016 state execution of a cousin who was convicted of murder.
Let's now cross over to a short commercial break.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
I said
Starting off with some cricket news, head coach of Sri Lanka cricket Chandika Hathurusinghe has been included as a member of the selection committee following amendments made to the constitution of the cricket board that barred the head coach to be a part of the panel of selectors. The move to include the head coach in the selection committee follows a request made by Hathurusinghe upon his appointment to include him in having a final word the selection of the national side.
Convening a media briefing, President of Sri Lanka Cricket Thilanga Sumathipala stated that the extraordinary meeting held today gave emphasis on amending the constitution, including the election of the General Secretary of the board and approving the playing conditions, rules and regulations of the structure of domestic cricket in Sri Lanka. This is the first time in the history of cricket governance in Sri Lanka that the head coach of the national side is included in the selection committee. Thereby, the head coach, the manager and the captain of the national team will be a part of the selection committee on tour to pick the final 11 for each match. Hathuru Singha will, however, not play an official role in selecting the squad for a series, and it will be fulfilled by the existing selection panel headed by Graham Lebroy.
Guru Singh and Hathuru is going to be playing a major role. Sometimes there will be mixed tours, long tours. We may have to take a decision in between. Sometimes, if the chairman of selection, if he makes an appeal, we can consider tour by tour. But short tours, I don't think we need to send. So we minimize that by having Mr. Guru Singh as the manager cum selector. Hathuru Singh also going to be part and parcel of selection panel on tour. I don't think we have to crowd it. It will be difficult for anyone to manage. Mr. Hathuru Singh and we had lengthy discussions. We found if we are to demand the work and the quality of performances, then we have to give him 100% backing. We found the gap, the head coach, if he doesn't have the final say, we support his thinking. I think it's a good thing to happen. And if we are expecting one of the top coaches to come on board and help us out, transform this game, we must back him 100%. So he will not be picking the 15. On tour, head coach and the manager, they don't have the time to watch the players. So we need a national chairman selection and the committee. We will have an independent committee of selectors. That will continue to be. But we are working very closely, very beautifully at the moment with Hathuru, Labby and the cricket board at the moment.
Any future coach will also have that selection power on tour.
Once the tour is declared by the board, he will become a member of the selection committee. Manager, captain, head coach. These three will become the final decision makers. On tour, we are appointing a manager. Manager is the one who is representing the board. Always our constitution is very clear. The manager on tour is the chairman of selection.
Australia's Shaun and Mitchell Marsh followed in the footsteps of the legendary War twins to be the latest pair of brothers to score a century in the same innings of a test match. The hosts, however, declared the match on 649 runs with 3 wickets remaining.
The Marsh brothers went to the crease with Australia holding a commanding 133 lead at 479 for 4. Shaun picked up the 2 runs he needed to complete his 6th Test 100 at Day 4 in Sydney, while Mitchell brought up triple figures just after drinks in the morning session. Marsh brothers embraced each other mid-pitch in celebration after completing Mitchell's 100 and lead nearly to a run-out, having skipper Smith on edge.
Getting a crease!
The stumps, however, went flying as Mitchell Marsh was dismissed by Tom Curran for 101, but Shaun Marsh continued the momentum with Tim Payne alongside him and completed his 150. Shaun Marsh was caught short when taking a single, and Stark soon followed but not before passing a total of 600. Skipper Smith, however, declared the innings at 649 for 7.
It's done. James Vince does well. There it is, the declaration.
In reply, Mitchell Stark was simply unplayable as he dismissed Stoneman for a duck. Nathan Lyon dismissed the dangerous Alastair Cook for 10 runs. With the dismissals of James Vince and David Malan, England was on 93 for 4 at the end of play.
Persistent rain had made it impossible for play as the second day of the opening test match between India and South Africa was called off. South Africa's bowlers had India in trouble in the second day of the opening test in Cape Town, dismissing India for 209. Hardik Pandya hit a quick 93 and stitched together a 99-run stand with Bhuveshwar Kumar for the 8th wicket to help India manage a 209 in response to South Africa's 286. Coming into bat in their second innings, South Africa reached 65 for 2 at stumps. Hashim Amla and Kagi Suravada were at the crease when the umpires called it a day.
Simple catch, Dean Elgar takes it and he'll have to run.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Let's now cross over to Shanla Fernando at the Other Derana Weather Centre for your forecast first evening edition.
Good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures for tomorrow are to vary between 14 and 29 degrees Celsius, with the lowest temperatures being expected in the central hills yet again. When we look at the map, we can expect some clear skies with low precipitation in most regions of the island over the course of tomorrow. The sun will shine bright upon most parts of the island, which includes Jaffna, Mena and Anuradhapura as well as Trincomalee, while some cloudy skies can be experienced in Puttlam. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your City by City forecast.
As His Holiness Pope Francis celebrated the Feast of the Epiphany with a Mass at St. Peter's Basilica yesterday, which traditionally marked the end of the festive Christmas season, 16 countries across the world celebrated the dawn of Christmas last night. The Russian, Georgian, Orthodox, Serbian and Jerusalem churches and Athos monasteries celebrated Christmas on January 7th according to the Julian calendar. Thank you for watching us and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.